his wife is never got married. And they got Jonathan just walked in. He had no picture. So one day he got upset. He did a selfie this time. Something that nice. We're missing your son. I'm just going to have to piece all these people together. Give it to me and I'll flip it up.
Rabbi Chelbo said to Rabbi Samuel Bar Nachmani, "Since I have heard that you are a good Haggadist, tell me the meaning of Lamentations 3:44. Thou hast covered thyself with a cloud that our prayers should not pass through." He replied, "Prayer is likened to a bath, repentance to the sea. As the bath is sometimes open and sometimes shut, so the gates of prayer are sometimes shut and sometimes open. But as the sea is always open, so the gates of repentance are always open. When someone wishes to bathe in the sea, they can bathe in it any hour they like. So with repentance, whenever someone wishes to repent, God will receive them." We begin on page 204 with Or Zarua.
Bishiva shel ma'ala ubishiva shel mata al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakal ay anu matirin litpalel im ha'avayanim Bishiva shel ma'ala ubishiva shel mata al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakal anu matirin litpalel im ha'avaryanim bishiva shel mala ubishiva shel mata al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakal anu matirin litpalel im ha'avaryanim. Kol nidrei v'sarei v'charamei v'konamei v'chinuyei v'kinusei Ushevuot din darna udishtabana udacharimna vidasarna al nafshatana Miyom Kippurim zeh ad Yom Kippurim haba aleinu letova kulon icharatna vehon kulon yehon shiran shavitin betelin umevutalin la sharirin vela kayamin nidrana la nidre vesarana la sarei Ushivuatana la shevuot Kol nidrei vesarei v'charamei v'konamei v'konamei v'chinuyei v'kinusei u'shevuot dindana u'deishtabana u'de'acharimna v'dasarna al nafshatana miyom kippurim zeh ad yom kippurim haba aleinu letova kulhon icharatna vehon kulhon yehon sheran shvikin shvitin betelin uvutalina la sharirin vela kayamin nidrana la nidre vesarana la sare ushvuatana la shevuot kol nidre vesare v'charamei v'konamei v'chinuyei v'kinusei u'shevuot dindana u'deishtabana u'de'acharimna v'dasarna al nafshatana miyom kippurim zeh ad yom kippurim haba aleinu letova kulhon icharatna vehon kulhon yehon sheran shvikin shvitin betelin uvutalina la sharirin vela kayamin nidrana la nidre vesarana la sare ushvuatana la shevuot v'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar b'tocham ki lechol ha'am bishgaga v'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar b'tocham ki lechol ha'am bishgaga v'nislach lechol hadat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar v'tocham ki lechol ha'am bishgaga Slach na lavon ha'am hazeh kegodel chastecha v'chasher nasata la'am hazeh mimitzrayim v'ad hena v'sham ne'emar Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha Vayomer Adonai salachti kidvarecha Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyimanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
What's the next color? What's the next color? Yellow.
A word of warning. My remarks tonight end on a cliffhanger. You'll get part one tonight. And see, this is how we pack them back in. Part two you get tomorrow morning, so I hope you'll be able to make it for that. Speaking of tomorrow afternoon, we will read Sefer Yonah, the book of Jonah, as the Haftarah reading. The story is a familiar one to many of you. God gives Jonah a job to do. Deliver a message to the people of Nineveh, telling them that they have been wicked and that they are all in big trouble. Jonah doesn't want to do it. He runs away. He gets swallowed up by a big fish. So far, very relatable for all of us, I'm sure. Finally, the fish spits Jonah out. He does the job. The people repent of their wickedness, and the city is saved. Hooray! Right? But not for Jonah. He's upset because he didn't want God to forgive the Ninevites. He tells God, in fact, that this was why he refused the job in the first place. He didn't want to preach a message that could result in that particular outcome. The story concludes with Jonah being a bit melodramatic and with God using a plant to prove a point. But that's neither here nor there. The takeaway I'd like to focus on is this one: how readily we human beings might shy away from a particular message when we fear what its results might be. In Jonah's case, it's preaching to the city of Nineveh. In mine, it's preaching to the fine folks here at Northern Hills Synagogue. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not going to tell you all that you're terrible sinners and that you're all in grave danger of divine punishment. Some of you, I happen to know, are very good sinners, actually. Nor do I want to see anyone fail at their efforts to repent or to be better people at this season or at any other time of year. In fact, for each and every one of us this year in this room, I hope that Yom Kippur marks a turning point for us individually as we seek to establish new, better habits in 5783. I also hope that it marks a turning point for us as a community, and that is where my fear comes in. Because I'm afraid of what will happen when I say the sentence I'm about to say. So here goes. Deep intake of breath. I'm worried about the Jewish future. Leaders, we're often told, are supposed to project an air of confidence, even certainty, keep up morale. But in truth, I have concerns. And despite my role, perhaps because of it, as a leader in this community, I believe it is absolutely urgent that I share some of those concerns with you. Whatever you may think on the subject, I do not believe that our synagogue, or synagogues in general, simply cannot survive in the 21st century. I don't believe they're doomed because of demographic trends like intermarriage or religious disaffiliation or any other such canaries in the proverbial coal mine. Perhaps you've heard it said that today's young adults are simply not synagogue goers by and large, that we cannot depend on today's 30-somethings and 40-somethings to one day fill the synagogue seats that their parents currently occupy, that we cannot depend on them to make minyan or to prioritize coming to services for Shabbat or holidays. Believe it or not, similar laments have been thrown around in previous generations. And it may even be true this time. We'll have to wait before we can really find out. But even if it is true, that's not the problem. The problem is that we simply expect them to. Without asking any hard questions of them or of ourselves, we assume that what we've been trying to achieve is necessarily worthwhile to them, and that it should remain our focus as well. We seem to have a very poor grasp of who we're talking to, what their lives look like, their schedules, their obligations, their finances, and more importantly, what their needs are. We aren't speaking the same language as the people we would try to engage, the people who haven't already bought into this culture, this community, its relationships, its activities, or its values. But even when we speak to our existing constituents, we aren't always very good at communicating our own expectations of what it is that we're really about. We hold up a standard of ritual, service-leading prowess that I have heard from some of our most invested members can leave them feeling inadequate, ignorant, or like they're being subjected to some kind of a test. And yet, those of us who know the liturgy and the Torah reading can tell you that every single one of our leaders and readers makes mistakes. No matter how perfect they might sound to you, some of us know that this is not the case. We hold up a standard of conformity to Jewish ritual law, halakha, in accordance with its interpretation by the conservative movement. In reality, though, I can tell you that I know of no member of our community who lives a life entirely bounded by halakha, whether it's conservative halakha or orthodox, myself included. In fact, this is one key place where we really have a key messaging problem. We continue to maintain lip service to the ideal of a life conforming to halakha, a life whose rhythms and ritual activities and indulgences are wholly in keeping with the limits imposed by Jewish law, when in reality, this is not what we expect from anyone. It isn't what we facilitate for them with our programs, our services, our classes. Traditional Judaism is so content-heavy that it can take decades of education before a person has the intellectual literacy that they need to even begin to unpack it, to wrestle with its symbols and its forms honestly and with integrity, let alone the emotional maturity that they need to respond to these appropriately and with their full presence. It's a project that clearly is not for everyone. It's one that requires an enormous investment of time and energy before it ever starts to pay off. We cannot act as though we expect contemporary Jews living in a modern, multicultural world to engage passionately with this project without seeing clearer and more immediate results than they currently do. There must be a kind of Jewish living that we can all strive for, and that we can all reasonably agree is worthwhile. One that isn't merely living an entirely traditional halachic existence. As a rabbi, that's not what I really want from people either. I don't want them to live a life dictated by halakha. I want them to live a life that's personally meaningful, that is shaped by halakha, responsive to the ideas and the sensitivities of Jewish law, and responsive to other forces in Jewish thought, culture, and history as well. Jewish life in this community needs a new plan. Jewish life in every community needs a new plan. A plan that goes broad and goes deep. A plan that's responsive to where people are, how they've been educated, and what they need. A plan that doesn't leave huge swaths of our population or our everyday lives out of the equation. And a plan that's honest about who we are and what we expect of each other. You don't have to be perfect to be a part of this community. You don't have to be Shabbat observant or Kashrut observant. You don't have to be a Talmid Chacham, a student of the sages. The truth is, you don't even have to be Jewish. Several weeks ago, our community celebrated the 50th anniversary of an interfaith couple. 50 years ago, when they were married, it certainly was not the norm to celebrate such an occasion in a conservative synagogue, or even in a Reform synagogue. In Jewish religious spaces, intermarriage at that time was often greeted with a combination of bafflement, hand-wringing, and resignation. Tshuvot were being written telling us that the Jewish spouse of a non-Jew couldn't serve as a shaliach tzibur, a prayer leader, shouldn't serve on a synagogue board, and truth be told, probably ought not be admitted as a member or even given an aliyah. You'll note that things have changed. They always seem to. And Jewish communities have to remain responsive to those changes. Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan said, now famously, on this subject that not in weighing whether we respond, but how we respond. The past has a vote, but not a veto. Applying this same notion to our identity as a community, we should consider that who we have been up until now most certainly needs a vote. But if we intend to grow and to adapt to a changing world, then that identity cannot be granted a veto. We have to make some changes. So, here's the promised cliffhanger. Tomorrow, after the Torah service, I hope you will join me either here in person or by stream online, and we will delve into one modest proposal for that plan. In the meantime, Tzom Kal Umashmoti. I wish you an easy and a meaningful fast if you're observing one, and a Gemar Chatima Tova.
Good evening, everybody. I guess we can say good Yom Tov, even though we are observing a fast day. And certainly, Rabbi, you have given us some very provocative words about which we should think. I have a different goal tonight. And I have to tell you, this is a hard one for me. The first year that I joined this synagogue, I was very shocked to see that we did a high holiday appeal. To me, it didn't fit within the rubric of tshuva. And so for the first couple of years, when the high holiday appeal came up, you could find me in the lobby. Well, that hasn't been the case for a number of years. I want to talk a little bit about our community and how important the high holiday appeal is. So let me start with a story. You may remember this from your childhood. The sun and the moon decide to have a contest to decide which one is stronger. They see a person walking by wearing a cape. In the old version of the story, it's a cloak, but we don't talk about cloakrooms anymore. And anyway, the game is on. Which one can force the cape off first? Well, first goes the wind. The wind creates a gale so strong and a wind that is so strong that it would put Hurricane Ian to shame. So, of course, the person wraps the cloak even closer and doesn't want to let go. Then the sun says, it's my turn. All abeam, the sun sends out rays of warmth, and we know what happens. Eventually, the temperature gets so warm that the person walking with the cloak takes off the outer layer of clothing. Well, what does this story have to do with our Kol Nidre appeal? If you haven't already figured it out, there are two approaches to Jewish fundraising. One is to be hard-hitting. I've been part of such fundraisers. Remember back to Operation Moses? I was involved at the Jewish Federation at the time, and one of the major donors of the Federation gathered other major donors into a closed room with his Doberman pinschers outside. True story. And this person said to everybody gathered, we are not leaving until we raise at least $2 million among us. Well, guess what? That's not our goal tonight, and that's not the approach of this high holiday fundraising appeal. Instead, we're going to take a different approach. So, before we talk about actual fundraising, I want to talk about another force of nature, not the sun and certainly not the wind. I want to talk about trees. We all know the ways that trees sustain us. They provide us with shade. They provide us with fruit. If we have maple trees, we may be lucky enough to enjoy the sweet sap that they provide. And these trees can even provide protection in those heavy winds that I talked about earlier. I, for years, like many people, thought that every tree was freestanding and bore no relationship to any other tree. Not so. Last year, an agronomist by the name of Susan Simard published findings that indicated that trees are protected by a mother tree. And with the mother tree, this groundbreaking research, forgive the pun, discovered that forest trees are all interconnected. They actually communicate with one another, they share resources, and it's done through a complex underground network of fungi. Two of her findings from the book really struck me and are relevant to our discussion on Kol Nidre. First of all, these fungi are part of a complex network. And did you know that what are considered to be more mature trees actually sustain younger ones? Well, this is what caused me to think about our synagogue. All of us donate at different levels. All of us have different levels of commitment depending upon where we are in the life stage. And so in some cases, our more seasoned members, those who have been part of our congregation for a longer part of time, actually support our younger members in different ways. As I read this, I thought about when my daughter Michal was much younger. She, like many of the kids in the congregation at the time, attended Yavna Day School. Yavna, now Rockburn, scheduled a special grandparents' day. Since we were from out of town, we didn't have any direct family members to call upon. Instead, we asked one of our long-cherished and beloved synagogue members, Fred Lee, of blessed memory, to become her surrogate grandfather for the occasion. Thank goodness for our synagogue, because he agreed and Michal smiled. Another example of the interplay between trees. This past year, 2 of our teens celebrated becoming B'nai Mitzvot, and oh, how marvelously they spoke before the Bima. Who mentored them so that they could lead parts of the service and read Torah and become full-functioning members of our synagogue? None other than one of our special volunteers, Barry Wilson. Another activity you should know about. How many of you noticed how bright the lights are in the social hall or in the hallway as you walked in? That's a result of 2 of our congregants, Bob Staten and Larry Knapp. They saw a need, they updated our lighting system, and they put energy into helping us get more energy efficient lights. That leads to 2 things. 1, we can save the environment, and 2, we will save long-term on our utility bills. When it comes to securing the necessary financial resources for our congregation, oftentimes our longer-term members are the ones who donate in excess of what you may expect, because they, like the mother trees, are more mature and have the ability and know that providing sustenance to the younger trees, that we are investing in the future of our congregation. Now back to Susan Simard. She found something else. This underground network of trees, they're called, and to the scientists here, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing the word, mycorrhizal fungi, or root structures that are shared among the trees. And these fungi underneath the ground all ensure each other's survival. The young trees help ensure the survival of the older trees, and vice versa. In fact, Simard noted that trees are actually selective with whom they share resources and how. They decide, just like we will later tonight, when and what to share with the other trees in the forest. She talked specifically about Douglas firs and birches. At one time, tree surgeons thought, get rid of the birches, they are interfering with the growth of the Douglas firs. But instead, what she found, that they nourish each other, and rather than competing with each other, they communicate underground, and when one of them is stressed, if one species is stressed, then the other species provides them with additional resources. Really interesting. Well, truly, our synagogue members do similar activities for one another. And there are a number of people who are present tonight because other members were able to drive and get them here. Our synagogue's recent Purim festival, did you know that it attracted more than 100 people to the event? And if interested, you want to see what a wonderful event it was, look at the pictures on our website. Our religious school organized that event. However, without the help of our long-term members, the event may not have been as successful as was desired, and it was due to both our longer-term members who took some of the background roles, as well as our younger families. And intertwining together, we not only created a great event, but we had the opportunity for more to learn about the mitzvot connected with Purim. And that's not all that we do for each other. Unfortunately, some of our congregants in the last year or so have experienced some major illnesses. When others in our congregation have learned about their conditions, what did we do? Did we check out? Did we leave that person alone? In most of the cases I'm aware of, we sprung into action. Some of our congregants set up meal trains, others did friendly visiting, others made phone calls just to check in. And in fact, if you now know someone in our congregation or allied with our congregation who is in such need, and we here at the synagogue do not formally know about it, please see either of our rabbis, me, or Sarah Barnard, who's our Vice President of Internal Engagement. We, as we look out all for ourselves, also look out for others. And similarly, during this very hard era of the last several years, Edie Neusner, who has run our soup kitchen and kept it going through thick and thin, found a way to continue our relationship so we could continue providing food to people who were in need, and she just reorganized it. Rather than baking everything in our kitchen, volunteers were asked to bake in their homes, and packages were assembled and then distributed to needy individuals. Yet another. Although we charge a fee to attend our religious school, we've made it clear that we're open to all families regardless of their ability to pay. Now, for some more unusual ways that we as a congregation look out for each other. Beginning on the Wednesday, after all the Hagim are over, one of our new members, Moran Dorfman, will offer weekly Pilates courses so all of us, young and old, can stay better fit and we can stay healthy. What a great thing to offer back to us. Long-term member Matt Lee has done something else. You know, he's become an expert at making boutique liqueurs. And after the holidays, when we're done using our lulav, he has offered to gather, or our etrogs, he has offered to gather those etrogs. And then, for later in the year, to make kosher LePesach citron liqueur that we can imbibe as Pesach approaches next year. So this is what our congregants do to help one another. Imagine what happens when we talk about what our magnificent rabbis and professional staff do to help us. So here's just a tickler of what's in store over the next several months. Right now, our religious school, led by Edith Moss, continues to provide children with innovative approaches to Jewish culture, religion, and study. I'm one of those people who comes here Sunday morning to help make up the Sunday morning minyan, and I have to tell you, the halls echo with the sounds of kids who are engaged in play and learning. It is just a delight to hear all the sounds. Now, speaking about learning, our rabbis are also involved in lots of adult learning. With our beloved Rabbi Pharaoh, you can learn about the wisdom contained in the Talmud. And if you don't want to come to this building, why don't we go drinking and learn? So there is Torah on tap in the evenings at area watering holes. You'll have to check our calendar to see where they are. Rabbi Shapra, fresh back from maternity leave, will start trope lessons up again for both Haftorah and Torah. Rabbi Barnard, our beloved Rabbi Emeritus, will be offering Midrash Wednesdays. And something totally new that I'll spend a little bit of time talking about are some new initiatives designed for women in our congregation. Beginning, I believe, at the first of the year, Rabbi Shapra, we will be starting a women's care collective for women between the ages of 21 and 40, not meeting here but all over town to refresh the soul and to do a little bit of Jewish learning. We also have in play new programming for teenage girls to respond to the special issues they face growing up in our society. So, with all these and more programs, we can celebrate a lot, but it costs money to do it. And unlike the trees that Suzanne Samar talks about, the money does not grow on trees. And that's where we all come in. Did you know we rely on 4 major sources of revenue? I think what we think about first are our dues and fees. So in addition to dues, we've got the fees of the religious school, and when our kitchen catering is active, we also bring in funds through that. These dues and fees only account for about 20% of our revenue. And one of the reasons it is only 20% is that we make a point of being open here to everyone, regardless of their ability to pay an assessment. Remember that. We are open to everybody because our goal is to enhance Jewish living. And now an important note about our dues. We all have experienced the increase in the cost of living this year. Nonetheless, our board made the conscious decision to maintain dues at their current level. We want to make sure that people can afford to belong to Northern Hills. And therefore, as I said, dues account, the combination of dues and these fees only account for about 20% of our revenue. We have other organizations that are willing to invest in us because they believe in what we do. And we receive a similar percentage of revenue from these other sources. Are you aware that the Jewish Foundation of Cincinnati provides us with a grant that allows us to cover the cost of programming and Rabbi Shapra's salary? Now, this grant will expire next spring. We're currently working with the foundation and hope that they will be willing to renew their investment in our outreach. For those of you who have been part of Rabbi Shapra's programs, you know how superb she is, and we certainly want to keep her as part of our congregation. Now, I mentioned a couple of women-specific programs, and there's a reason for that. Earlier this year, we were approached by representatives of the Thelma Mastin Foundation, which is administered by PNC Bank. Now, the Thelma Mastin Foundation is not a Jewish fund. As a matter of fact, Thelma Mastin was Baptist, but she did really believe in promoting women and making women equal in society. And so, the Thelma Mastin Fund has provided us with a very generous one-year grant to develop new outreach and creative programs for females in Jewish households, targeting females who are between the ages of 13 and 40. We are really excited to be involved with this. Rabbi Shapra, along with Vice President Tammy Meyer, are developing these programs. They will be unfolded later this year, and I can't wait, and I just wish that I hadn't turned 41 or a little bit more. So, anyway, there's more. We have received funds from the Jewish Federation. The Federation has provided us with a sizable grant, After we secured new commitments to our long-range giving campaign, Create Your Jewish Legacy for the Future, and thanks to those of you who have either signed letters of intent, have signed full commitments, or have paid those pledges, the Federation recognized us with a matching grant for our efforts, and they will do so again in the coming year if we meet certain targets. That's faith in what we do. The Federation is also responsible for providing us both with training and funds to ensure that when we are in this building, we are safe. You noticed as you came in tonight, a representative of the Sheriff's Office, Deputy Barnes, either she is here or someone else is here or one of our own who's trained in security are here to make sure we are safe. We are able to do this with the resources and the investment of an outside funder. So we do have a third source of revenue. I talked a little bit about long-term giving. I mentioned CYJL. Many of us have contributed to the Zorndorf Fund for the Future, and that's another one of our revenue sources for our annual budget. We have found that in order to run the quality programs that we use those monies, and they are well invested. So now that leads us to our final source of revenue, fundraising. We do it in a couple different ways. We have run fundraising events throughout each year. This last spring, we raised a significant amount of money by bringing in an Elvis, an Elvis impersonator. And boy, did he look like Elvis, especially at the later stages of his life. Maybe it not have sounded too much, but he did. And with the work of Jeff Mastin and the rest of the fundraising committee, it made a difference. So the rest of the funds come from our High Holiday Appeal. And this year, we are looking to all of us, to meet our goal of some $210,000. As you think about your Kol Nidre commitment, remember that we are so much more than worship services, and that was also part of our rabbi's talk. In fact, do you know what our formal mission is? We are here to connect people to meaningful Jewish living, bringing them into a community of mutual care and shared learning. I want to reinforce that as a congregation, we celebrate our community's diverse backgrounds, our different identities, our experiences, and our patterns of engagement with Jewish tradition. And our mantra, if we have one, is to be able to respond to each one of our unique spiritual, intellectual, and material needs with both with empathy, with depth, and with integrity. And we can only do that if we have a budget that provides us with the funds to do so. As you look around the room tonight, you will notice that not everybody has a card with them. And there's a good reason for that. In advance of this appeal, 55 of us have already agreed and pledged $175,000 toward this appeal. That's fantastic. So if you do the math, we only have to raise another $35,000 to $40,000 among us. That's not bad. Now, our pledges range in size, and for those of you who have been here in the past, it's no different than it's been in the past. There are some who are only able to make small high holiday pledges. Please know that what you do is very significant, no matter what the amount. There are others in our congregation who have committed more than $10,000 in addition to their dues, because they so believe in this congregation. Among those that have already pledged this year, I'm really happy to report that on average, their increases in their pledges amounts to 15% more. Let me tell you what I've done. I wish I were in the financial circumstances to donate in the way that our large givers do. I am not. But I look carefully at my pledge. This synagogue has been so meaningful to me that I have pledged a 20% increase over my last year's commitment. I hope that as you open your pledge card, you will think carefully about your circumstances, what you can do, what the synagogue means to you, what it provides to you, and both financially and as well as the sweat of your brow, what you are willing to give back to our congregation. Here tonight are individuals who are yet to become members. Guess what? We've provided an opportunity for you too to contribute to our synagogue. We will do everything we can to keep our doors open in the future. And if you are a guest and do not have a pledge card, Henry Fenichel, among others, will provide you with a card that you can take and in which you can pledge. If you have resisted the urge and you have not yet opened up your card, when you open it, you will find an infamous paper clip appended to it. It has a suggested donation on it. We would like you to either accept that amount, move that paper clip to a higher amount if you feel that's appropriate for you, and if you can't, move it to a lower number. We certainly hope it will be an increase. Regardless of what you are able to contribute to the appeal, we are most grateful. So let's go back to trees. Eitz Chaim Chi. We say that every time we have a Torah service. It reminds us that the Torah is a tree of life for those who hold fast to it. On this day, when we petition the Almighty for life, remember that you too can be recognized as Susan Samard's mother tree, giving life and sustenance to all of those who are around you. So let me end my talk tonight with my hope for a Gemar Hatima Tova to all of us.
Please rise as we turn to page 207.
Umavir yom umevi laila umavdil ben yom uvelaila Adonai tzvaot shemo El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed Baruch ata Adonai hama'ari v'aravim. Ki hem chayenu be'orech yamenu ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברתם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Adonai Elohechem emet.
God performs wonders beyond understanding, marvels beyond all reckoning.
God places us among the living, not allowing our steps to falter, and leads us past the false altars of our enemies.
God exalted us above all those who hated us, avenged us with miracles before Pharaoh, offered signs and wonders in the land of Egypt.
God smote in anger all of Egypt's firstborn, brought Israel from its midst to lasting freedom, and led them through the divided water and the sea of reeds.
As their pursuing enemies drowned in the depths, God's children beheld the power of the divine.
They praised and acknowledged God's name, willingly accepting God's rule.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל, לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות ספר לב. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקר ים לפני משה, זה אלי אנו ואמרו ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Please join me on page 211 as we read responsively. Allow us, Adonai our God, to sleep peacefully and to awaken again to life, our sovereign. Shield us, remove from us enemies and pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow, and remove the evil forces that surround us.
Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you, God, watch over and deliver us, and you are the sovereign, merciful, and compassionate.
Ensure our going and coming for life and peace now and forever. Who spreads the canopy of peace over us and over all the people of Israel and over Jerusalem.
ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים כי ביום הזה
Please rise.
ירחם עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני תטהרו יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה ובזמן קריב במהרו אמן יש מרבה מברך לעולם ולעלמיה יתברך וישתבח יתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי דקודשא בריחו לעילה לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן.
We turn to the silent Amidah beginning on page 213. I encourage you to continue with the words on the page, perhaps in the English, perhaps in the Hebrew, or perhaps on the margins, or the meditations of your own heart. turn now to our slichot prayers, our prayers of confession and petition, beginning on page 223 with the piyut Ya'aleh Kolenu. Continue on page 225.
הנשמה לך והגוף הלך חוסה חוסה על המלך. הנשמה לך והגוף שלך אדוני עשה למען שמך. עתנו על שמך אדוני עשה עשה למען שמך. בעבור כבוד כבוד שמך כי אל חנון ורחום שמך. למען שמך שמך אדוני וסלחת לעווננו כי רב הוא.
service will continue with a recitation of an invocation of the 13 attributes of mercy, beginning on page 226. We rise. We read together. God, you are patient. You are known as the source of mercy. You taught the way of repentance. Today and every day call to mind the wonder of your compassion and mercy toward the children of those you loved. Turn toward us in mercy, for you are the source of mercy. We approach your presence with supplication and prayer and with the words you revealed to Moses, the humble one, long ago. Turn away from wrath, and let us nestle under your wings, as it is written in your Torah about the day God descended in a cloud, overlooked sin, blot out guilt, as on the day God stood beside him. Hear our cry, attend to our plea, as on the day he called the name Adonai.
Vayavor Adonai al panav vayikra Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Ve'anun, Erech Apayim, Ve'rav Chesed Ve'emet, Notzer Chesed Ba'alafim, Nosei Avon Va'fesha Ve'chata Ve'nakeh, V'salachta Lavonenu Chatatenu unchaltanu, slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, mechalanu malkenu ki fashanu, ki ata Adonai tov v'salach, v'rav chesed l'chol korecha.
Page 227. As clay in the hand of the potter who thickens or thins it at will, so are we in your hand, guardian of love. As stone in the hand of the mason who preserves or breaks it at will, so are we in your hand, God of life and death. As iron in the hand of the blacksmith who forges or withdraws it at will, so are we in your hand, support of the poor. As the helm in the hand of the sailor who holds the course or abandons it at will, so are we in your hand, good and forgiving God. As glass in the hand of the glazier who shapes or melts it at will, so are we in your hand, pardoner of sin and transgression. As cloth in the hand of the draper who drapes or twists it at will, so are we in your hand, righteous God. As silver in the hand of the smelter who alloys or refines it at will, so are we in your hand, healer of wounds. turn to page 229, and we rise.
El melech yoshev al kisei rachamim mitnaheg b'chasidut mochel avonot amo ma'avir rishon marbe mechila lechaatayim uslicha lefoshim עושה צדקות עם כל בשר ברוח לא חרתם תגמול אל הורית לנו לומר 13 זכר לנו היום ברית 13 כמו שהודעת לעניו מקדם כמו שכתוב וירד אדוני בענן ויתייצב עמו שם ויקרא בשם אדוני ויעבור אדוני על פניו ויקרא אדוני אדוני אל רחום וחנון ארץ אפיים ורב חסד באמת נוצר חסד באלפים נושא עוון ופשע וחטא וסלחת לעווננו ולחטאתנו ונחלתנו סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד לכל קוראיך
We continue on page 232 with a responsive reading.
Listen to our prayers, God. Hear our pleading, our sorrow-filled voices.
Pray.
May your ear hear and your eyes open to the prayers of your servants, the people Israel. May you forgive your people who have sinned against you. As a parent looks kindly on a child, may you, God, look kindly on us. Salvation is Adonai's alone. Pour blessings on your people forever. Adonai Tzevaot is with us, our support, the God of Jacob, forever. Adonai, save us. Surely the Sovereign One will respond to us on the day we call out. As befits your abundant love, please forgive this people's sins, just as you have always forgiven this people from the time of the Exodus from Egypt until now. When Moses recited this prayer, it is recorded, Adonai said, I forgive as you asked.
סלח נא לעוון העם הזה כגודל חסדך וכאשר נסעת לעם הזה ממצרים ועד הנה ושם נאמר ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדברך ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדברך ויאמר אדוני סלחתי כדברך
Continue on page 233. Grant atonement and purify us this day, as it is written in the Torah. For on this day atonement shall be made for you to purify you from all your transgressions. In the presence of Adonai you shall be pure. Bring us to your holy mountain and make us joyful in your house of prayer, as Isaiah prophesied. For my house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. Please rise.
Shma kolenu Adonai Eloheinu chus v'rachem aleinu וקבל ברחמים וברצון את תפילתנו. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם. אל תשליכנו מלפניך, ורוח קודשך אל תיקח ממנו. אל תשליכנו לעת זקנה, ככלות כוחנו אל תעזבנו. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו, כי אנו עמך ואתה אלוהינו, אנו בניך ואתה אבינו, אנו עבדיך ואתה אדוננו, אנו קהלך ואתה חלקנו, אנו נחלתך ואתה גורלנו, אנו שונאך ואתה רואינו, אנו חרמך ואתה נותרנו, אנו פעולתך ואתה יוצרנו, אנו רעייתך ואתה דודנו, אנו סגולתך ואתה קרובנו, אנו עמך ואתה מלכנו, אנו מאמירך ואתה מאמירנו, אנו עזי פנים ואתה רחום וחנון, אנו קשי עורף ואתה ערך אפיים, אנו מלא עוון ואתה מלא רחמים, אנו ימינו קצה עובר ואתה ושנותינו לא יתמו. Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi, Ay, 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 Hevinu, Hirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafalnu Shekem, Ay, 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 Yatsnura, Kizavnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Sararnu, Kishinu Orez, Ay, 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 Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu, Sarnu mitzvotecha mimshpatecha hatovim velo shavalanu ve'ata tzadik al kol haba'alenu ki emet asita v'anachnu hirshanu.
We abuse, we betray, we are cruel, we destroy, we embitter, we falsify, we gossip, we hate, we insult, we jeer, we kill, we lie, we mock, we neglect, we oppress, we pervert, we quarrel, we rebel, we steal, we transgress, we are unkind, we are violent, we are wicked, we are extremists, we yearn to do evil, we are zealous for bad causes. We continue on page 237 with the long confession, Al Chet, beginning at the top of the page. Al Chet.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'yetzer hara Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'yodim u'belo yodim ve'al kulam elo aselichot srav lanu nechanu kaper lanu. Al chet shachatanu lefanecha b'einayim ramot ve'al chet shachatanu lefanecha be'azut metzach ve'al kulam elo haslichot srav lanu mechanu kaper lanu. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בתשומת יד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בתימהון לבב. ועל כולם אל סליחות, סלח לנו מחל לנו, סלח לנו מחל לנו, כפר לנו.
Continue with a reading on page 239.
Throughout the long hours of prayer, we speak of all the reasons why God should care for us and forgive us. Our remorse, our atonement, our acknowledgement of wrongdoing, God's own promise of mercy, God's wish to be known in the world as loving. In this prayer, we call on our association with our ancestors who were cared for by God. We subtly imply that since we are their children, we have inherited their spiritual legacy. In placing our own prayer in the context of theirs, perhaps what is implied as well is that in accordance with that we seek to live our lives in accordance with that which gave them honor.
Thank you. Page 240.
Mishana lesara imenu beziknata, huyanenu, 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 huyanenu. Mishana leAvraham Avinu behar haMoriah, huyanenu, 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 huyanenu. Mishana litzhak benam kishenekad al gabe hamizbeach, huyanenu, 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 huyanenu. Mishana l'rivka beherona, huyanenu. Mishana l'Yaakov beveit el, huyanenu. Mishana l'Leah be'onya, huyanenu. Mishana l'Rachel be'itzvona, huyanenu. Mishana l'Yosef beveit ha'asurim, huyanenu. Mishana l'Me'adot ha'ivriot al ha'avnaim, huyanenu. Mishana l'Yocheved al sfat ha'yeor, huyanenu. Mishana l'Avatenu u'imotenu al yam suv, huyanenu. Mishana l'Moshe bechorev, huyanenu. Mishana l'Miriam beveira, huyanenu. Mishana l'Aharon b'machta, huyanenu. Mishana l'Pinchas b'kumo mitoch ha'eda, huyanenu. Mishana livnot tzelof achad be'omdan petach ohel moed, huyanenu, 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 huyanenu. shana lechol hatzadikim v'hachasidim v'hatmimim v'hayesharim v'harachmanim. Hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu, hu ya'anenu.
Page 242. The item identified here in English with a Hebrew letter het above it, a hey above it, excuse me. God of mercy, who answers the poor, answer us. God of mercy, who answers the brokenhearted, answer us. God of mercy, pity us. God of mercy, save us. Please rise.
Avinu malkenu, hachazirenu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha. Avinu malkenu, shlach refuah shlema lecholei amecha. Avinu malkenu, zachrenu bezichron tov lefanecha. Avinu malkenu, katvenu b'sefer chayim tovim. Avinu malkenu, katvenu b'sefer geula v'yeshua. Avinu malkenu, katvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala. Avinu malkenu, katvenu b'sefer zichuyot. Avinu malkenu, katvenu b'sefer silicha u'mechila. Avinu malkenu, chanenu banenu. Avinu malkenu, chanenu banenu, ki en banu masin. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'hoshienu. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yalema divra kiute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imeru amen. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach Le'olam Le'olmei Almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha brichu le'ela le'ela mikol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran ve'alma v'imeru Amen. Kabbatzloton u'ba'uton dechol Yisrael kadam avuhon divishmaya ve'imeru Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen.
We remain standing as we turn to page 246.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, latet gidula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kmishbechot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Turn now to Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 247. As we do, we'll note Yortzites falling this week. Over the remainder of the week, those of Lee S. Weisberg, Sidney Mossman, Dorothy Albright, and Thelma Bush. In addition, we think at this time of those we've lost in our community over the last 11 months, among them Selma Cohn, Lori Gupp, Ben Koff, Matt Yosefat, Peter Gabor, Sandy Richards, Kay Gaines, Irv Zipperstein, Elaine Nevins, Joan Dane, Eileen Hodesh, June Howard, Pam Simowitz-Weber, Gerald Sapadin, Hal Schneider, Rosemary Bloom, and Stephen Buda. If there's anyone else you're remembering tonight and you'd like to share the name of the person you're remembering with us, I'll invite you to do so. If you're reciting Kaddish, please join me. It's on page 247. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah. Ba'alama divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei t'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mavarach la'alam u'lalamei alamaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei t'kudusha v'richu. La'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran ba'alama v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'imromav hu ya'asei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Page 248. לדוד אדוני אורי וישיבי וירא לעלות חיי מידך. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. שבתי בבית אדוני כל ימי חיי, לחזות בנועם אדוני וככלו. לחזות בנועם אדוני ולבקר בהיכלו. כי יצפנני.
לולא האמנתי לראות בטוב אדוני בארץ חיים, קווה אל אדוני חזק ויאמץ ליבך וקווה אל אדוני.
Announcements.
Seeing that I used more than my 15 minutes for the high holiday address, I'll keep this really short. First of all, it is wonderful to see everybody here. I wish I could see the people on the live stream. I'm glad they are with us. Our altar tonight is blessed with flowers that have been donated by both by the Laziers and by Lois Pornoy. We thank them very much for it. Larry is madly waving a basket in the back of the room because the high holiday card basket is not as full as it should be. So if for some reason you have neglected to put something in there, we would love to see something there, and if not, tomorrow is another opportunity. Rabbi, please talk about services tomorrow and our next steps.
Tomorrow services, 9 a.m. So you have a chance to catch a little snooze before you come back. And we will be doing our services tomorrow morning from 9 until sometime in the early afternoon. And we will resume after a brief hiatus with a mincha service and afternoon service at 4 p.m., a study session at 5:30, led by Rabbi Shapra, and a Ne'ilah service beginning at 6:45. If anyone is keeping tabs on this sort of a thing, the fast ends, at least in this particular locality, somewhere around 7:54 p.m. and 27 seconds. But the 27 seconds was my own addition, just to be safe. Somewhere around 7:54, 7:55, 7:56. We plan for Neela to end somewhere around there. So we hope to see you at some of those services and learning opportunities tomorrow. And we will conclude with a song and a prayer. Yigdal, page 250. A king had a son who had gone astray from his father a journey of 100 days. His friends said to him, "Return to your father." He said, "I cannot." Then his father sent to say, "Return as far as you can, and I will come to you the rest of the way." So God says, "Return to me, and I will return to you." Shana Tova Techatemu, may you all be inscribed and sealed for a year of blessing, and Tzom Kal, may it be an easy fast. Fred? Hi. Not so bad.
On your sermon, it reminded me of my first days when we came into Cincinnati. Chabad uncle and Rabbi Mengel was just new to the area, and we were going to Chabad. And I remember one of his, here he is, CDs, and he said, it begins one step at a time. If you don't keep kosher, you have trape in the house. Next time you go into Kroger, pick up a can of vegetarian beans.
Right.
Just begin. Then what? One step at a time.
Absolutely make a difference. Yeah.
Good company. And thank you for reminding me.
Thank you. Welcome. Right, I understand. I understand. I'm seeing around 10:30. It's well, since we're starting at so the reading isn't terribly long. Yeah.